Hi guys, I'm David DeMuzio.
And I'm Steve Cook.
Welcome to Hair Loss Hope. And today we are giving you reason number 4 on our reaction of why Harry from Baldcafe chose not to get a hair transplant. Now, a quick disclaimer that I think that Harry made the best decision for him as to why he didn't get a hair transplant and chose to shave his head. And I think that's fantastic, and he seems very happy with that. So this is just our perspective on his perspective at the time that he made this video. And again, this could have changed. Maybe his reasoning changed. I don't know. I think my reasoning behind many of the things that I'm doing is constantly evolving and changing. And I think wise people are constantly changing and evolving their perspective based on new information that they get. So this is just at the time he made this video, his reasoning behind this and our perspective on it in case it's helpful for you. So reason number 4.
Now, reason number 4 is the hassle of it all, okay? You know, say you got to get on a plane, go over to Turkey, get your £2,000 hair transplant. You know, then I've got to wear bandages on my head for the next sort of 2 weeks or so. After that, you've got that weird sort of scarring all over it. Not scarring, scabbing all over it. Then you're left with that sort of real baby-looking hair for, what, 3 or 6 months. You know, and I've heard that it takes almost up to a year to actually get that hair growing back normal. And often you have to combine the hair transplant with other treatments like minoxidil and Propecia as well. So not only do you have to go through this sort of operation process, the healing through that, you then have to obviously subscribe to taking Propecia or minoxidil to keep that hair strong and keep that new hair transplant, you know, as healthy, I guess, and as strong and as long-lasting as you can. So you've got this big concoction of these hair loss treatments, which of course all cost money, and I just can't be bothered with that. Plain and simple, I think it's way too much hassle for the sort of benefit of having hair. I just can't be arsed with the hassle. Now, reason number 5.
Okay, so reason number 4 as to why Harry chose not to get a hair transplant is the hassle of it all. And from my perspective, I think that this is at least the way that I feel about a hair transplant. I think that I probably most relate to this reasoning, actually, the hassle of it all, because there is some hassle. You know, there is some continuous money that you're going to have to put forward for medicine. There is, you know, surgeries that you have to go through. So, I mean, that is definitely something to consider. To me, again, totally worth it, like very much worth it. I would say that I do think that a couple of the numbers and things that Harry read off at the beginning of the video aren't exactly accurate, and that's okay. Like he, you know, has never had a hair transplant, so he's probably not going to know off the top of his head. But I feel like, what were the things that he said at the beginning of the video, as far as timelines go? I think he said that he was going to have to wear bandages around his head for 2 weeks. So that was one of the things. That was bandages for 2 weeks. And you don't need to wear bandages for 2 weeks. I wore bandages for the one night, the day after the surgery. The day after surgery, I was walking around in public. I'll put a video of that maybe around here, so you can see me walking around in public, you know, through the airport with my hair. So at that time, I did have scabs on my head. All of my scabs were off of my head within, I think they came off within 6 days from my last hair transplant. So within 6 days, my head was back to normal-ish looking. You know, there was still, because I'd had multiple hair transplants, there was still some scarring that you could see, but I mean, I probably could have covered that up with Dermatch after about a week or 2. So I was walking around, again, Harry seems like a pretty confident guy. So I don't feel like I feel like he'd be a little bit more like me in this way, where it'd be like, screw it. Like, I don't really care. Who knows? I mean, I definitely don't have to walk around my head with bandages for 2 weeks. Like, that would definitely be a little bit weird. So bandages for 1 day. And then after that, dealing with, you know, having some little scabs on your head for about a week. And then after that, it depends on the kind of surgery you have. If it's FUT, actually, they often can do it. My FUT surgery I had before this, that one, I looked pretty normal like the next day, actually, because they didn't even shave my head for that. Right. And so I can put some video of that as well. I'll show like the day after surgery with my FUT surgery. I looked pretty normal the next day, actually. And I mean, I actually was like sleeping with girls, like going on first dates and stuff like that in New York City as a single guy with my FUT scars still in my head. That's how normal I looked. That even though I mean, not scars, my FUT stitches. So like, I think in day like 9, I went on a first date like in Tender in New York City, and I literally had like stitches in my head, and I was going on a first date and getting lucky. So like it definitely wasn't slowing me down. So I think his perspective, having not been through this, isn't exactly accurate to at least my what I've been through, but I do think that there is some truth behind this.
I don't know, David. I mean, nothing in life comes easy. You got to work for everything you get. We all know that. If you're going bald and you have an option to get your hair back, put in a little bit of work. I mean, obviously, it's not for Harry. Harry's kind of lounging out in his recliner, and he looks very comfortable. He's got a couple different, choices of adult beverages on the countertop, and he looks like he's going to have a good day. And I applaud you, Harry. Like, you're a confident guy. A lot of the people out there watching this video, hair loss hope, is they're looking for some hope. Okay. And David and I are here to give you that. And we can tell you that there's no question about it. In this world, the number one cosmetic procedure for men, hands down, for the last 15 years has been a hair transplant. Why is that? If we take price off the table for a second, you're there for one day. It's not a bad day. It's actually kind of like
very relaxing day, actually. I've been saying this for years. The last couple of hair transplants, they were like, I looked forward to them. When I was coming down here for my last one, I looked forward to it. I was like, oh, dude, I'm just going to take some Versed. They're going to shoot me in the arm, and I'm going to sleep for 9 hours. It's going to be so relaxing. I'm going to catch up on all my rest. And that's honestly how I felt. Slept through the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, you've got this kind of like amazing adrenaline, knowing that every time you feel anything, which is not painful or discomfort, but just there's there's something going on. That's more hair going in your head. Yeah. So like, you're going to spend this kind of money. You're going to choose the right doctor, right clinic. You're going to feel pretty good as long as they manage, the day, which here Dr. McGrath does a great job of. And you're going to, at the other end, you're going to go back to your hotel or your home. You're going to come back in the next day for hair wash and feel like a different human being. You've got another, 8,000-9,000 hairs in your head. So it's not a bad day. It's not that much of a hassle. I mean, you were bald. Now you've got hair. Now it just has to grow in. So the healing process is not that bad if you follow the instructions. You need to be a compliant patient and do your part.
Yes. If you're looking at perspectives of people that either didn't go to good surgeons or didn't follow the right instructions of how the medication or whatever that they were supposed to take afterwards, or the way they're supposed to spray the recipient sites, or sleeping with their head up the first night so the fluid drains and everything like that, and you find people who haven't followed these instructions, then you would get a perspective of, oh my gosh, this is horrific. And I can totally understand that. There's a lot of those things online. There was one other thing I was going to say about the aspect of it being just too much of a hassle, and that is, it looks like Harry works out from the video. I mean, he's got some nice arms and looks like a pretty fit guy. And I work out a good amount. I know Steve does. I would say that working out is way, way, way more of a hassle for the amount of gains of like looks wise anyway that you get from it. Like 100%. You've got a lot of people, they're taking supplements, protein powders, which are like more expensive than the hair pills and things like that. Protein powders, pre-workout drinks. Got to eat way more food to, like, for me anyway, to gain more muscle, because that's my metabolism. So, wow, I mean, working out is just heads and tails. And you're talking about, even if you work out every other day for like an hour plus an extra hour, of driving back and forth to the gym and everything like that, you're looking at like way, way more hassle. It's not even remotely close, extra, like working out for aesthetic purposes anyway, and hair transplant.
Yeah, I mean, it is not a bad day, and then it heals up very quickly. So you're not talking.
Also the months. I think he was saying that it looked really bad and wispy for like 3 to 6 months. 3 months after your hair transplant, your hair should look better than it did before you went in for your hair transplant. Would you say it's accurate?
Yeah, I mean, we want to use averages. So the average is about 4 months that you'll start to see some sprouting, but it will not look funny or weird. It'll just literally be like some of the plants or some of the seeds you planted in your backyard are just starting to come through the dirt. But it doesn't give you that chia pet kind of look. So it's kind of, interesting because it's good and bad. You know, it's like trying to watch paint dry in your living room for a year. So when you see it coming in, you're like, wait a second, like I don't see a lot, and it's not exciting at 4 months, and then all of a sudden it just evolves, which is kind of cool. So you don't want like your next door neighbor or the person you sit next to at work knowing you got a hair transplant, right? I mean, that's what most people don't want. So when they see it coming in, nobody that you see on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis is going to say, what's going on? I see your hair getting better. I know you got a hair transplant. That's never going to happen if it's done right.
Yeah. And I think most of the guys that I speak to, pretty much all of them across the board, would tell me that when their hair starts growing in, like they're so excited that that's not a bad, like that, at least after 4 months, that's not a bad period. I think that there is a right after a hair transplant, maybe there's probably like a month or two within that sort of 4 to 12 week sort of range where your hair probably looks worse than it did before. Some people call it the ugly duckling stage. And there will be some kind of period in there where your hair probably doesn't look quite as good. But then there's the upside of going like, oh my gosh, I'm growing hair. Like my hair is coming in. I know for me, there was very little time in any surgery afterward where I wasn't in the excitement mode of, wow, things are getting better instead of worse for me. All right, last video is going to be reason number 5, why Harry chose not to get a hair transplant. So look out for that next.